Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, funding APT. Also, is Cash king in the upcoming special primary? And the Supreme Court expedites the Tuberville case with time running out.
Special delivery, a burn. Were you expecting one? A burn!
More like a time bomb that's probably going to be a dud. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR, and also the sunshine in the Sunshine State right now.
Yeah, that's right. It's lovely. As I've said before, it's a great place. It really is.
Well, I know Tommy Tuberville recently told people that if he was running for governor to help the people of Alabama, and if he couldn't do that, he'd go home to Florida.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Florida's a great place.
This brings us to the major topic right now in politics. The Supreme Court has granted an expedited hearing in the Tommy Tuberville case. However, the hearing has nothing to do with his residency. The Supreme Court does not have that before them right now. What they do, in fact, have before them, Susan, is Judge Reed's case where she dismissed the residency challenge against Senator Tuberville. So the Supreme Court has now got to decide whether that ruling by Judge Reed was correct. And if they say it was, then it's all over with. If they say that it should be reheard, then the case moves forward to declare whether he is eligible or ineligible. And that's all we've all been asking all along. Is he eligible under the 7-year statute that says you got to be a resident of the state 7 years prior to the election? And there are plenty of people who have questioned that he is not. That is what the lawsuit's about. But the Supreme Court ruling is only about the judge's ruling in Montgomery Circuit Court. Now, the big problem there, Susan, is the expedited hearing is not expedited enough. And that's because the calendar that the Supreme Court has chosen runs up against the calendar for the election certification and filing with the Secretary of State. So you want to break that down a little bit for us?
Well, what the Supreme Court is looking at right now is what Judge Reed ruled is that she didn't have the jurisdiction in her court to make this decision. And so what's been appealed to the Supreme Court is if she doesn't, then who does? So that's the decision right now that the Supreme Court's got to come to. Before they even get to talking about whether Tuberville actually lives here or not.
Right.
And that's getting really sticky because, all right, the Supreme Court has scheduled it for August the 7th. The ordinary deadline for a party to file a replacement is the 19th. Now, Tuberville has 14 days after whatever to make his argument, what puts us at the 29th of August. But the last deadline is the 24th of August. That is the last time that if they decide that Tuberville is not a resident and need to replace him on the ballot, the 24th is the last they can do it, because that's when the ballots have to be printed, which means that going forward, should that they decide that Tuberville is not a resident and therefore not qualified, that means his name is still on the ballot. They can't replace his name on the ballot. Anybody who votes for him in the general well, then those votes won't count. They'll just be for naught.
Josh, this is a case where the calendar that the Supreme Court has put together, and I give them credit for expediting, I give them credit for taking it up, but the calendar for the election is really that's the play clock right there. I mean, that's where it's come down to a 2-second shot, and I don't think they can make it.
I think they Doug Jones' campaign should go ahead and plan on running the campaign against Tommy Tuberville. Is what I think. I mean, I mean, listen, let's be honest about this here. We're at a point where we're in legal technicalities on what's taking place in the court. Okay, we're at that point. We're at this stage, and it's going to surpass any deadline. I don't think Tommy Tuberville is going to be removed from the ballot at any point. But I mean, I just don't. I don't think that. I think that they're not going to do that. I don't. Evidence aside, I'm not even talking about the evidence. I just don't think they're going to do it. I don't think that they're going to step up and do and treat this as a serious case. I don't think so. They've given no indication, and I think this expedited schedule that they're on is not all that expedited. I think the fact that only one justice recused himself, that's Greg Cook. I think that's an indication that they're not going to do this. I think they're going to run. I think that what they're going to ultimately do is run out the clock, basically. All right, I think that's what I think they're going to run out the clock before this thing ends, and that's going to be the end of it. That's it. That's even if they come back at some point and say, all right, listen, we're gonna rule on this. I don't think they're ever going to issue a ruling on this particular point. I don't think they're going to.
Well, and that's tragic to me, because the court has a responsibility to interpret the Constitution. The Constitution has been on the books since 1901, and a version of that was on the books even before that. But if Josh is right, and it appears to be so, we are going to run out the clock and not know what the answer is to a legitimate constitutional question. And it's not even if Tommy Tuberville lives here so much. I think that should have gone before a neutral arbiter or court, but they are running out the clock, it appears. But they still have an obligation to address the issue. Who decides what the Constitution means? Because if it doesn't mean this for Tommy Tuberville, then who does the Constitution exist for?
Well, again, I think we're trying to put logic into politics, the two of which never should actually cross paths.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Josh.
No, you're fine. I cut you off. It was, this thing. I've approached this a couple of different ways, and so I'm going to try both of them. All right. Let's say we right now had a Democratic candidate for let's say Doug Jones. Doug Jones is only 28 years old. We believe we found evidence. I know Doug is really hopeful that this is the case, but we found evidence that he's only 28 years old, right? And we're going to let Joe Reed and the Democratic Party determine whether or not he actually meets the 30-year requirement. Because remember, there's only 3 constitutional requirements to run for governor. That you be 30 years old, that you be an American citizen, and that you live here for the previous 7 years prior to the election. But so one of those, we're pretty sure he doesn't meet it. We found some pretty good evidence, but we need a birth certificate to prove it. But the Democratic Party said they've looked at some other documents and it's not good enough. Would anybody allow that to stand? Would anybody not be screaming and yelling from the rafters? Of course not. And let me tell you one other thing. Here's my other argument. Okay, we've talked about, the courts or whatever the laws say that the parties decide this. What about for an independent candidate?
Yeah.
What about for a libertarian candidate? Who the hell decides that? Who holds those guys accountable?
Well, there's really one issue in my mind, and that is, why is the court not doing this in a timely manner? And it looks like what we said, they're running out the clock. But anyway, we've got to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Your property is your home, your investment, and your legacy. Across the country, scammers are filing fraudulent deeds, often without the owner knowing until it's too late. REACT is a free alert system. If a document is filed using your name or tied to your property, you'll be notified within 24 hours.
Property fraud is a crime, and the faster we know it, the faster we can act.
Sign up today. Protect your property, protect your legacy.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, we're having a special primary August 11th, right around the corner, because Alabama was allowed to use 2023 maps that the courts had previously ruled were illegal gerrymandered. They were racist maps. But through a series of events, the Supreme Court came back and said, well, we have a new standard now, and this is not racist. And so we go back to the 2023 maps. Shamari Figures is the one who faces the most challenge here, because the District 2 that he ran in 2024 and won was an opportunity district, meaning that there was an opportunity that a black candidate or a Democratic candidate could win that seat, and he did. Now, they've changed that map, so now it's much more of a majority white or majority Republican. So he's got the biggest challenge here. But he also has the biggest war chest.
He does. That's the surprising thing. I think we've got 4 races here. Figures has got 656,000, where Marquise has 449,000, and Hampton Harris has 219,000. Now, certainly money doesn't always decide a race, but it plays a big part in it. I mean, he's double, in Hampton's Harris case, I mean, that's double the money. So it's looking really good. I mean, Jerry Carl's got 438,000 to combined opponents of like $10,000. Gary Palmer's got 258,000, and Dixon's got $168. So
Yeah.
but the shining thing in here is Shamari Figures. Is really he may take this election, even though they re-gerrymandered
But Josh,
the
the
district.
Republican Party is going all in to defeat Shamari Figures and reclaim that seat at all costs.
No, they should come up with a better candidate. That should be the first thing. I know they're going to dump money into it, but they've got a terrible candidate, and Shamari's a better one. And that's just the bottom line. Shamari is a great representative for that district. He has proven himself to be. He works as hard as Terry Sewell does in her district, and we talk all the time about Terry Sewell and her visibility and the thing that she does in her district. And Shamari has taken up the same sort of work ethic in his, and it's astonishing, really. I've done these comparisons for years with Terry Sewell and the Republicans that run in these other districts and just cruise in on the backs of having an R out beside their names. And in the meantime, they never do shit for the district. They never do. They sit around. I mean, when's the last time anybody up in North Alabama even laid eyes on Robert Adderholt? You know, come on. You know what I mean? It's in the meantime, Terry Sewell's running all sorts of jobs camps. She runs a job camp every month in the summer. Every month she gets jobs in there for her folks to go to these job fairs. And Shamari started doing the same thing. The only other person who's done anything like that in our congressional delegation was Barry Moore, who ran one for veterans while he was in office. I mean, I praise Barry Moore for doing the same thing. And it's just, when you have people who are tied to those districts and go around and spend time talking to people like Shamari Figures has and his, that makes a difference to people. And he's put forth things that are meaningful to farmers and to small business owners and to all of the constituents throughout his district, not just Democrats, everybody who lives there. And that's making a difference. That's why people are supporting him right now.
So what you're saying, Josh, is he's actually doing the job instead of just cruising in there and sitting on his hands like so many other, both the Senate and the House have done.
The problem is the gerrymandered districts.
Yeah.
Another problem that the House, the U.S. House, is just passed is this SAVE Act bill, which right now, according to United States law, a foreigner cannot vote in a federal election. If you are not a citizen of the United States, you cannot vote in a federal election. What they're wanting to do is make people decide that not decide, prove beyond a doubt that they are American citizens. Take for Alabama, a star ID in Alabama does not prove you are a citizen, but they're going to ask millions of Alabamians to prove that they're actually citizens. And a study done recently shows that about 350,000 Alabamians either lack or have little access to birth certificates or other proofs of citizenship like a passport, Josh.
Yeah, no, and I'll tell you right now, what we ought to do as Democrats, if we weren't so interested in fairness and crap all the time, we ought to just say, all right, the hell with it, pass it. Because I guarantee you it'll hurt Republicans a lot more than it's going to hurt Democrats. Because if you look at throughout the whole country, throughout the whole country here and judge this thing, there are a lot more Democrats who have the access to that paperwork and those passports than there are Republicans. Okay, there just simply are. And can I make one other point back to Shamari real quick,
Sure.
for just a second, because this House is about to flip. Okay, we all know that. We all know it's coming. The House is about to flip to Democrats. Man, it sure would be nice to have some people in our state on important committees sending money back home for the next, 4 to 8 years.
Yeah. But Susan, again, your mother was born at home. When she tried to get her passport, she didn't have a birth certificate.
No, and her school records burned, because the school burned and all of her school records burned. So she had absolutely no proof, whatever, that she was a citizen, that she'd even been born. But here is my biggest question, okay? So, all right, let's say you take your passport. Let's say you take your birth certificate over. You've got it. You're going to vote. All right, now you're asking the poll worker to verify that passport or that birth certificate is not faked. How are they going to determine if that was faked or not? And that's putting one more thing on the poll worker here.
Well, and the registrars are really, I think, the ones that are going to have to do the job, and they're not ready to do the job.
So we all need to file through the registrar's office in the county? This is ridiculous, is my point.
Well,
there is no think it through. There is no, okay, you've got to have this and this. Well, who do you take it to?
They've thought it through.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Your property is your home, your investment, and your legacy. Across the country, scammers are filing fraudulent deeds, often without the owner knowing until it's too late. REACT is a free alert system. If a document is filed using your name or tied to your property, you'll be notified within 24 hours.
Property fraud is a crime, and the faster we know it, the faster we can act.
Sign up today. Protect your property, protect your legacy.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Now, I don't know that many people will get that excited about this, but you know, there has been this move, and it started during the Trump administration, to eliminate, and they have, the funds to fund public television. And Alabama is struggling with whether to keep PBS on the air. And this is because certain people in the Republican Party have decided that PBS is just too woke because, you know, they obviously didn't get to watch it as kids and learn anything about the government. And God forbid that you had learned anything from Sesame Street, because those are some woke mofos right there. I mean, you can't even hardly get more woke than that Kermit, right?
That's right.
But
Kermit's not on there, I don't think.
Oh, he's not. Kermit's not on PBS.
No, he's not on
That's Grover and Grover and the Oscar
Sesame
the
Street.
Grouch and Big Bird. And, yeah, there's Kermit's a Muppet. Kermit's a
Oh,
Muppet.
Yeah.
I got them all mixed up. Okay, and so the Count Dracula is not on there either, right?
Yeah, no, Count Dracula's on there.
Yeah,
Is he
Count
on
Dracula's
there?
on there.
Okay,
Yeah.
all
Big
right.
Bird, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Elmo.
Anyway, it's been 100 years ago for me, John. Anyway, we lost a whole thread there. But anyway, the idea is basically whether APT, Alabama Public Television, is going to keep trying to fund PBS. And so, Susan, they do the most logical thing that any politician or appointee would do. They're going to poll it
Yeah.
to
they're
see
gonna
if
poll
people
it.
like PBS or not.
Now, here's my favorite part. It's going to cost close to $50,000
To do the poll.
to do the poll.
Yeah.
They're taking it out of the rainy day fund. Okay, now, let me see if I've got this straight. You know, I'm an idiot most days, but rainy day means emergency. This is where you put your money back for a rainy day, and so in case something goes wrong, in case you have an emergency. As far as I can see, this is not an emergency situation. So why are we taking money from the rainy day fund to fund a poll, which is ridiculous to start with?
Josh,
Just my question.
I mean, they do not want people watching Masterpiece Theater. I'm sure of that because it's just too.
Or I'm
surreal.
a bill
It's
on
so-
Capitol Hill.
It's so woke.
Yeah, I think they could probably use the count up there to help them out with some of this. Although I got to say, it did not seem as though PBS made a great big impression on you, Bill. The Muppet. I mean, you got a
Obviously
crossover
not.
with the
It
Muppets.
did on
so-
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it did me
obviously
too.
not.
And I was recently reacquainted with my daughter with all the great programming that they have, the Daniel Tiger, the Molly of Denali, all these great little shows that they have for kids, which are really, really fantastic shows. They really are. I've watched a bunch of them. They teach a lesson. They horrifically teach about empathy and compassion and treating others fairly and being nice and all of these great things that kids we used to all agree should learn, to treat each other fairly and accept everybody and not be mean to each other. That used to be something that we liked. I don't know what happened, but you don't need the poll. I can tell you how the poll is going to end up. The poll is going to end up 80% of the people want them to keep PBS is what's going to end up here because only the absolute fruitcake fringe of this state are out here screaming and yelling. And of course they're the loudest. And so they're the ones doing it. But you ask any actual parent, let me tell you, we should conduct the polls. Go to the schools and talk to all of the parents in the PTO programs at the schools and poll them there. Do that. See what you come back with.
Unfortunately, they're using a Republican pollster, so I don't know how this is going to come forward.
Well, I mean, think about Schoolhouse Rock, for instance. I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill, Conjunction Junction, all of those great that we said as kids and absorbed all of these songs
Right.
and they got into our psyche so that we were actually learning something.
Well, we can't have that. It's too damn woke. But I want to get to one next thing, and not because it's one of the more funny things. Because not funny, but we've had this outbreak of cyclospora, and mainly traced to lettuce. Now, Alabama only has 28 cases as of this recording, but it's been every news person that has talked about this starts off with, it causes explosive diarrhea. Now, I'm not sure what kind of diarrhea that is. I mean, do you blow the pot out? I mean, it's pretty bad. But you know, Susan, the problem here is our food safety has just tanked in recent years. Because,
Why?
well, I know you know
I'll
why,
get to
Josh.
it.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just asking you to think. So why is that, Bill? Why has it tanked?
Well, I think because we have too many people who eat roadkill and have had too many worms in their brain.
Exactly. Listen, it breaks down to this. It comes down to one final thing. They sent all the workers back home. They sent ICE into places to scare people to go back. I'm telling you what, this white girl is not going to go up on Chandler Mountain in 105-degree temperature and pick tomatoes for Hardee's. I'm not, you know, it's not, this skin won't do that. You know, but because they've sent all these workers that were working on the farms home or scared them home, we're having to get our lettuce and things more from Mexico, which, by the way, in case you didn't know, they don't have the regulations on farms that we have here, that a person can relieve themselves in the fields and it's okay according to their standards.
And Josh, we only have about 30 seconds, but the disease comes from fecal matter, keep coming in contact with the produce, but our government is doing nothing but putting out misinformation, and everybody's confused on what they can and cannot eat.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest problem here is that we've gutted a lot of the oversight that used to be in place that would stop some of these things. Doge had a lot of cuts, which didn't save us anything, and now has everybody running to the toilet constantly. And if I believe, you'll find that the people who would have been directly responsible for the oversight of such an outbreak and the oversight of such food safety have been cut.
Yep,
And that's the consequences. These are the consequences. So as you're sitting on the toilet, think about that.
Well, because we've had an explosion in the national debt because we gave tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires. But we're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.